"You're already dead to us, Dad. Sign the papers." The words slammed into me harder than the heart attack I had survived 2 months earlier. My own son stood in my kitchen, the place where Linda used to hum while making pancakes, and dropped a blue folder on the table. Papers spilled across the counter, one sliding onto Linda's photo in its frame. He didn't even glance at it. His keys jingled, and I saw the shine of my house key hanging from his chain. "I'm still alive," I said quietly, my hand on the scar under my shirt. "That's arguable," his wife Brooke smirked, sipping from her Starbucks cup. She reached over and moved Linda's picture onto the fridge like it was just clutter, then wiped the counter with a napkin, as if to erase the memory. I tilted my head, right ear forward, pretending not to hear well. Let them believe I was deaf. People speak the cruelest truths when they think you're not listening. And I heard it all. Thursday, Golden Oaks takes him. After that, the house is ours. My dog Max whined from the corner, sensing the tension. He barked once, sharp, and Brooke rolled her eyes. "Shut that mutt up. He doesn't belong here either." Then came the second blow. My daughter Madison walked in with a notary public, a stranger in a gray suit carrying a leather case. The air felt colder, the hum of the fridge louder. "Mr. Bennett," the woman said briskly, "we'll just need your signature here and here." Madison smirked. "It's easier this way, Dad. Don't make it dramatic. Just sign, and we'll handle everything." I looked at the glass of water placed just out of my reach. My throat was dry, but I didn't move. I stared at the papers, at my wife's photo half hidden by the fridge magnets, and felt something inside me snap. They thought I was finished. They thought I was deaf, weak, already gone. But I was listening, I was watching, and I wasn't done. Subscribe right now, and in the comments write your name and your city. If they tried to erase mine, I'll remember yours. They tried to bury me with papers. I'll bury them with the truth. The morning didn't start with sunlight. It started with the hum of the motel fridge. I sat at the little table, staring at the blinking red numbers on the microwave, 6:32, while the cold air from the wall AC pulled across the scar under my shirt. Since Linda passed, mornings had no sound worth waking up to. She used to be the first one up, turning on the radio, pouring coffee, humming a tune under her breath. Now, it was only the cheap ticking of a plastic wall clock and the sudden crash of the ice machine in the hallway. I poured coffee into a styrofoam cup from the motel lobby. It smelled more like burnt paper than beans. One sip, and I pushed it away. On the table lay a manila folder stuffed with medical papers, bills, EOBS, receipts, pharmacy slips, insurance statements. I kept them close like a shield, proof. Every cent of my heart surgery was paid by me. Not $1 came from my kids. Sometimes I tilted my head and pretended I didn't hear. The heart attack had left me half deaf in my right ear. But that weakness became my trick. The moment I looked away, silent, they thought I was lost. And their real words came out. Yesterday I heard Brooke's voice, sharp as a knife. "He doesn't even know what's happening. We'll take the house. Golden Oaks will be better for him." And Madison, without hesitation. "Yeah, Thursday is perfect. They'll have a room ready." I stood by the window pretending to stare at the parking lot lights. But I caught every word. I remembered Linda, how we saved for the kids' college, how I worked nights at the Costco warehouse, how we scraped enough to buy Madison her first Honda Civic, Ethan his old Corolla, DMV lines smelling of rubber and antiseptic, Linda's hand on my elbow as the clerk called our number. The kids laughed, snapped pictures, and not one thank you. Now, the same kids were laughing about shipping me off to Golden Oaks. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan lit the screen. "Dad, I'll put the utility bills on autopay. Just send me your Chase card info." I stared at the words. "No, how are you feeling, Dad? Just card, just money." I set the phone face down. My hand trembled. "Max," I called. The dog lifted his head from the thin motel carpet, wagged his tail, and whined softly. In his eyes I saw more warmth than in all my kids' voices combined. I pulled the folder against my chest. Heavy, thicker than it looked. My last defense. My proof that I wasn't useless, that I still mattered. The HOA meeting smelled like bleach and Costco cookies. Folding chairs squeaked under neighbors shifting their weight. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I sat in the back row, manila folder on my lap, trying to ignore the sugar-sweet smell that mixed with the sourness of old carpet. Ethan stood near the front, chatting easily with the HOA president. His voice carried, confident, the way mine used to when I was still running crews at the plant. Yeah, once Dad moves out, We'll finally fix the gate system. It's a security risk having his code still active. A ripple of laughter went through the room. Not cruel, but sharp enough to sting. The president chuckled and wrote something on her pad. Guest access should be limited, she said, not looking at me. Guest. In my own house. Brooke passed by my chair with a paper plate of cookies. She leaned down just enough for me to catch her whisper. Try not to make a scene, okay? People are already nervous with you living alone. I kept my head tilted, right ear forward, acting confused. Let her think I didn't catch it. Let her think I was deaf. But I heard every word. Max was waiting in the car outside. I pictured him in the passenger seat, nose pressed to the window. More family than anyone in this room. The meeting droned on. Sprinkler budgets, parking violations, some neighbors' complaint about trash bins. My chest felt tight, not from my heart this time, but from the way everyone avoided my eyes. They all already saw me as halfway gone. When it ended, Ethan slapped my shoulder like he was the caretaker, not the son. Come on, Dad, let's get you home. Home, the word burned. At the door, I heard one of the board members mutter behind me, not knowing I could hear. Poor guy. He won't last another year. At least his kids are planning ahead. I walked out into the parking lot, folder under my arm, Max barking from the car as if he'd heard it too. Dinner at the house didn't taste like dinner anymore. Brooke reheated something in the microwave, plastic trays that smelled of garlic powder and rubber. I sat at the end of the table, the spot where Linda used to sit across from me, laughing about how Madison always picked the olives off her pizza. Now Madison was here in person, phone on speaker, voice bouncing across the kitchen. Yeah, Thursday at 2:30. Golden Oaks confirmed the room. All Dad needs to do is sign. No, they won't check too hard. He's already half out of it. I tilted my head, pretending to miss it. Eyes on Max curled under the table. My fork scraped against the plate. Louder to me than their words, but I caught every one. Don't worry, Madison added to whoever was on the other end. Once he's in, the house can finally go on the market. It's easier if the paperwork looks like we're helping. My stomach twisted. The microwave meal heavy as concrete. Dad, eat, Brooke said sweetly, sliding another tray my way. You need your strength. Ethan grinned, not even hiding it. Strength to move. My hand shook just enough to spill water from the glass. Brooke clicked her tongue like I was a child. She grabbed a napkin, wiped the table, and moved Linda's framed picture from the shelf to the counter. Out of the way. That was the second blow. Not words, but the quiet removal of what mattered most. Linda's face pushed aside like clutter. I looked at the three of them, my kids and their chosen partners, their mouths full of food and plans, and thought about every sacrifice. College tuition, down payments, that first Civic and Corolla. The nights Linda and I worked overtime so they could have something we never did. And now, here they were, planning my exit like a home renovation. Max whined under the table, pressing his head against my leg. I scratched his ear, my only ally in the room. I set my fork down. Done? Ethan asked, smirking. I didn't answer. I just tilted my head again, right ear forward as if I hadn't heard. Let them think I was gone already. Because the truth was sharper when people thought you were deaf. And I was listening. The next morning, the house smelled of printer ink. Ethan had set up his laptop at the dining table, stacks of white forms spread out like a dealer's cards in Vegas. Blue sticky notes marked where my signature was supposed to go. Dad, he said casually, as if we were talking about groceries. These are just formalities. Power of attorney, some insurance authorizations. Golden Oaks needs everything ready by Thursday. I stood in the doorway, Max pressing against my leg. The hum of the fridge filled the silence between us. I didn't agree to that, I said. Brooke looked up from her phone, voice coated with sugar. It's not about agreeing. It's about what's best. You can't handle bills, doctors, all that stress. We'll take care of it. She slid a pen across the table. Not my pen, not Linda's. Some cheap ballpoint with a bank logo. Just sign here, Ethan repeated, tapping the yellow note. I walked closer, my right ear turned toward them, head tilted as if I was straining to catch his words. They thought I was weak, fading. But I heard Madison whisper as she came through the door, her tote bag stuffed with more papers. Golden Oak said, Thursday 2:30. If he doesn't sign, we can push the guardianship process. Judge will understand. Everyone sees he's not himself. Her eyes flicked to me, then away, like I was already absent. The folder in my hand felt heavy, my proof pressing into my ribs. I tightened my grip. Max barked suddenly, sharp, the sound bouncing off the kitchen tiles. Brooke scowled. God, that dog! He's always nervous when you're around. He senses it. I knelt and scratched behind his ears. He senses the truth, I muttered. They didn't hear me. Or maybe they didn't care. Ethan pushed the pen closer. Thursday's coming fast, Dad. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I looked at the stack of forms, at Linda's photo now shoved onto a crowded shelf beside unopened mail. My chest ached, but it wasn't the heart this time. It was betrayal, raw and simple. I set the pen back down, slowly, deliberately. And in that quiet moment, I promised myself, I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't plead. They thought they'd already won, but Thursday wouldn't be their victory. The doorbell rang sharp, one note that felt like a warning. Brooke smoothed her blouse. Right on time. A woman in a gray suit stepped in, leather case in hand. Notary public, she said. Behind her, another woman with a clipboard smiled too brightly. Golden Oaks intake. Hello, Harold. The kitchen smelled of lemon polish and printer ink. Papers were spread across the table, blue notes marking where I was supposed to die on paper. Driver's license, please, the notary said. Ethan slipped my wallet from the counter and handed it over. My house key glinted on his ring. I'm still alive, I muttered. That's debatable, Brooke smirked, sliding a glass of water just out of reach. Harold, just sign. Thursday at 2:30, Golden Oaks is ready. The coordinator tapped a form. Power of attorney, HIPAA release. Less stress for you. Max padded in, sat by my leg. His growl rumbled low. The notary frowned. We'll need witnesses. Already got them, Madison said, leading in two neighbors. Their eyes slid over me, then down to their sneakers. State your name, the notary ordered. Pen clicked. I tilted my head, right ear forward. What? Ethan sighed. He's fine. Just sign. That's for him to say. The notary cut him off. Then to me. Are you signing willingly? I opened my manila folder and set it on the table. Bills, receipts, Walgreens slips, Chase statements, my proof. Ethan's jaw tightened. Dad, he hissed, tapping the sticky note. Stop wasting time. Max barked once, sharp. The neighbors jumped. I need air, I said, pushing back my chair. Brooke rolled her eyes. He thinks he's walking out? The notary closed her case halfway. He can step out. We'll resume when he returns. I tucked the folder under my arm. Ethan's hand twitched like he wanted to grab it, but didn't. Madison's voice followed, sugar over steel. Don't be long, Dad. We'll still be here. Max was already at the door. I turned my right ear toward them one last time, catching Madison's whisper. If he stalls, we'll push guardianship. I stepped into the daylight, folder pressed to my chest. Behind me, the door shut, leaving their laughter sealed inside. We weren't done. Walgreens always smelled the same. Disinfectant, printer ink, and stale candy near the checkout. I walked in with Max at my heel and the manila folder under my arm. The fluorescent lights buzzed like flies. At the pharmacy counter, the clerk scanned the screen. Prescription for Harold Bennett? I nodded. She frowned. It was already picked up. Signed yesterday. By who? My voice cracked louder than I meant. She tilted the monitor so I couldn't see. It says authorized family member. From the line behind me, a man muttered, Poor guy. Happens all the time. Kids step in. Another voice, a woman. At least they're taking care of him. I felt every stare burning my back. Max shifted, letting out a low whine. I didn't authorize anyone, I said, gripping the counter. I pay my own bills. I pick up my own meds. The clerk's eyes softened, but her voice stayed flat. Sir, maybe you should talk to your caregiver. The word stung more than the heart surgery scar. Caregiver. I tilted my head, pretending not to hear, right ear forward. People thought I was deaf, but I caught the whispers. He doesn't know where he is. Shouldn't be here alone. My folder slipped and hit the floor with a heavy thump. Papers fanned out. Chase receipts, Walgreens slips, hospital bills. Proof scattered like trash. A kid in line bent to help, picking one up. This has your name on it, mister. I snatched it back, hands shaking. Yes, my name. Mine. The crowd hushed. Even the clerk froze, her scanner blinking red. For a moment, only Max's bark cut the silence. I shoved the papers back into the folder, hugged it to my chest, and turned toward the door. Behind me, the whispers rose again, softer now, almost pitying. Golden Oaks will be better. Poor old man. The automatic doors opened with a hiss, hot air rushing in from the parking lot. I walked out with Max trotting close, folder pressed tight, heart pounding. Inside me, something shifted. This wasn't just insult anymore. This was war. The motel room smelled of bleach and old carpet. The kind of smell that never leaves, no matter how much air you let in. I sat on the edge of the bed, folder on my lap, Max curled tight against my leg. The clock on the nightstand blinked 12 again, as if time itself refused to move forward. I'd reset it 3 times since the heart attack. Each time it slipped back to midnight, stubborn and blank, just like the people I'd raised. I called Ethan, straight to voicemail. I called Madison. Dad, I'm in a meeting. Can't talk. The line went dead before I could answer. The phone was heavy in my hand, heavier than the scar in my chest. On the small table sat a takeout bag from the diner down the street. Cold fries, a ketchup packet oozing onto the paper. The TV above the dresser played Channel 7, muted captions scrolling about a mayoral scandal. Nobody talked about old men whose families erased them while they were still breathing. I thought of Linda, the way she used to leave notes in my lunch. Don't forget your meds. Love you, stubborn man. I could still smell her perfume on the sweater Brooke stuffed into a box. I pulled it out once, hidden under motel towels. Pressed it to my face until the scent faded into nothing but fabric. Max whimpered, nudging my hand. His eyes were steady, loyal, more family in one look than I'd had in months. The phone buzzed again, a text from Madison. Dad, stop fighting this. We're just planning your future. Please cooperate. Planning my future, like I wasn't even part of it. I typed back, I paid my bills. I'm fine. No reply, just silence. The folder sat there, fat with proof. But proof didn't keep you warm at night. Proof didn't sit across the table asking how your day was. Proof was only paper until the right time. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the AC hum, and thought, maybe this is what dying alone feels like. Still breathing, but already invisible. The next morning, I drove back to Walgreens. Max rode shotgun, his head out the window, ears flapping in the freeway wind. I told myself it was just to pick up my prescription, but deep down, I wanted proof that yesterday wasn't real, that the clerk had made a mistake. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed like angry bees. The same clerk glanced up, her smile too quick, too polite. Mr. Bennett, your prescription was already picked up. Yesterday? By who? My voice cracked. She hesitated. It says authorized family member. That's all I can tell you. Behind me, someone in line sighed. Poor guy. Shouldn't be alone. Another whispered, his kids are doing the right thing. The words pressed against me harder than any heart monitor ever had. Max barked once from the door, his leash taut in my hand. I gathered the folder tighter under my arm and left without another word. Out in the parking lot, a neighbor spotted me. The Johnsons, people I'd lived next to for 20 years. He looked straight at me, then lowered his gaze to the ground, pretending to check his phone. Couldn't even meet my eyes. I drove back to the motel, the freeway lights bleeding red on the hood of the car. Max curled against me when I sat down on the bed, folder spilling open. Papers fanned across the cheap blanket. Receipts, chase statements, insurance forms. Every page a record of me trying to stay alive. On top was a flyer someone had slipped under my door. Golden Oaks Assisted Living. Safe, caring, professional. My name scribbled in the corner. Someone had already filled the date. Thursday. I crushed the flyer in my fist. The room was silent except for the AC humming, the ice machine rattling in the hallway. My chest hurt, but not from the scar, from the emptiness of it all. I looked at the papers scattered across the bed. For weeks I had been begging silently, hoping someone would see me. They didn't. They wouldn't. I whispered it out loud, for Max, for Linda, for myself. Enough. I'm done asking. From now on, I prove. Max licked my hand as if sealing the vow. The manila folder had become more than paper. It was my weapon, my shield, my heartbeat. Each night at the motel, I opened it, lined the receipts in rows, traced the ink like it might disappear if I blinked. One slip caught my eye, a Chase bank statement 2 weeks old. At the bottom, a line, external account access attempt, device ID, iPhone. Not my iPhone. Mine was older than dirt, cracked screen, wheezing battery. Ethan's, though, shiny, always in his hand, glowing like a toy. I stared at the line until the numbers blurred. He hadn't just wanted my signature. He had already tried to take what wasn't his. The next morning, I drove to Chase. Max waited in the car, nose pressed to the glass. The branch smelled of carpet cleaner and stale coffee. Behind the counter, a young manager with a too bright smile typed into her computer. Yes, mister. Bennett, I see the access attempt here. She tilted the screen so I couldn't read, but her eyes gave her away. It wasn't completed. You should secure your account. Who tried? I asked. I'm not authorized to say, she answered, voice dropping. Then, after a pause, but the device ID, it matched a phone on file for a joint application attempt. Joint application? She shifted in her chair. Someone applied to link your account. That's all I can say. I felt the scar on my chest pulse. My kids weren't just planning my exit. They were already testing the locks on my life. Freeze the account, I said. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Are you sure? It could complicate. Freeze it. Today, her nod was quick, nervous. She slid me a stamped paper confirming the hold. I folded it into my folder, the edges cutting into my palm. On the way out, a woman in line whispered to her husband, poor man, still trying to manage his money. I tilted my head, right ear forward, pretending not to hear. But I heard every word. Max barked when I came back to the car. I sat in the driver's seat, folder heavy on my lap, and felt the first spark of something I hadn't felt in months. Not hope, not yet, but direction. They thought I was deaf. They thought I was done. I had just found their first mistake. The strip mall looked like every other in California. Faded signs, sunburned parking lines, the smell of Subway bread drifting from the corner. Max waited in the car, ears pricked, while I walked toward the glass door that read, Elder Law and Estate Planning, K. Ramirez, Esquil. Inside, the office smelled of cinnamon air freshener mixed with disinfectant. A receptionist in glasses nodded me through. The leather chair creaked when I sat, folder tight in my lap. Mr. Bennett? A woman stepped out, mid-40s, sharp eyes, navy blazer. I'm Karen Ramirez. Come in. Her office was lined with diplomas, blinds half closed against the sun. I handed her the folder without a word. She flipped through the stack, Chase statements, Walgreens slips, insurance bills, pausing at the stamped freeze order. You've kept everything, she said. That's good. Very good. They think I can't hear. That I'm gone already, I told her, my voice cracked. But I hear everything. They're planning Golden Oaks on Thursday. Ramirez nodded, pen scratching across a yellow legal pad. We'll start with an affidavit of capacity. Your doctor can sign, and I'll notarize. That blocks any claim you're incompetent. Next, we revoke any prior powers of attorney. She pulled a form from her drawer, the notary seal already waiting. And if they try again, we file for a restraining order against financial exploitation. I stared at the seal, shiny and heavy. The same tool they tried to bury me with, now turned in my hands. I don't want revenge, I said slowly. I just want them stopped. That's what the law's for, she answered. But we need proof they pressured you. Do you have recordings? Notes? I thought of the whispers I'd collected in silence, the words I'd memorized while tilting my deaf ear. Not yet. But I can get them. Her pen tapped once, deliberate. Do it, discreetly, and bring it to me before Thursday. I signed the revocation with Linda's old pen, which I'd brought in my jacket pocket. The scratch of its tip sounded louder than my own heartbeat. Ramirez slid me copies in clear sleeves. Keep these somewhere safe. Not here, not at the house. Max barked when I opened the car door. I set the folder beside him, new documents tucked inside. For the first time in weeks, the weight of the papers felt less like a burden and more like armor. I looked at the clock on the dash. Thursday was coming fast. But I wasn't walking in unarmed. The motel room became my war room. Papers spread across the bed, receipts lined like soldiers. Max sat at the corner, watching, tail tapping quietly on the thin carpet. I bought a cheap recorder at Walgreens. Ironic after what happened there. Small, red light hidden behind plastic. I carried it in my pocket like a talisman. That night, I went back to the house. Ethan was in the living room, TV blasting sports. Brooke scrolled her phone, speaker volume high so I could hear. I tilted my head, acted confused, and pressed record. Thursday's locked in, Ethan said. Once he signs, we list the house immediately. Realtors ready. Brooke snorted. He's too stubborn. If he stalls, we'll push guardianship. Judge will believe us. He doesn't even hear half of what we say. The red light blinked inside my pocket. Proof. I slipped out before they noticed, folder under my arm. My hands shook the whole drive back. Next morning, I stood in the FedEx store. The place smelled of toner and cardboard, machines humming. I slid an envelope across the counter, copies of the recordings, Chase Freeze notice, my revocation form, addressed to Ramirez's office. Delivery confirmation? The clerk asked. Yes, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Back at the motel, I added another layer, a small storage unit off El Camino Real, metal door, air thick with dust and oil. Inside, I placed a second set of documents, wrapped in a plastic sleeve, just in case. As I closed the lock, I felt eyes on me. Across the lot, a car idled too long, engine humming. Ethan's SUV. Or maybe my paranoia. I drove off anyway, Max restless in the seat. The folder pressed against my ribs, edges cutting into my shirt. At night, I sat on the bed, listening to the playback. Ethan's voice, clear, arrogant. Once he signs, we list the house immediately. I stopped the recording and whispered to Linda's sweater folded in my bag. They think I'm deaf, but I hear them, and now the world will too. Thursday crept closer like a storm on the horizon. I thought I was ready, but they were watching too. That morning, I parked outside Ramirez's office, folder on the passenger seat. Max barked once, sharp, as if warning me. Across the lot, a black SUV idled, tinted windows. Ethan's license plate frame glinted in the sun. Go Bears. I froze. If I stepped out with the folder, he'd see. He'd know. I slid the papers under the seat, scratched Max's head, and forced myself inside. My pulse hammered all through the meeting, but Ramirez was calm. You did well, she said, tucking the FedEx packet into her cabinet. Even if they destroy your copy, I have mine, and we'll get duplicates filed today. When I came back out, the SUV was gone, only an oil stain left on the asphalt. That night, I nearly blew it. I was back at the house, sneaking more receipts from the kitchen drawer. The recorder was in my pocket, red light steady. Brooke walked in. What are you doing? I froze, hand on a Walgreens slip. Looking for my glasses? I muttered. Her eyes narrowed. For a moment, I thought she'd spotted the recorder. Then she shrugged, picked up her phone, and walked out. My knees felt weak. Later, in the motel, I replayed the audio. Her voice was on it, clear as day. He's too stubborn. Judge will believe us. I leaned back on the bed, folder spread open. Max curled against my side. My hands still shook, but inside me, something shifted. They almost caught me. Almost, but not yet. I stacked the papers, neat and heavy, proof on top of proof. For the first time since the heart attack, I felt it. Not hope, not victory, but control. And Thursday, I promised myself, they wouldn't take that from me. It started with a knock that didn't belong. Too sharp, too official. When I opened the motel door, a woman in a beige jacket stood there, clipboard in hand. The logo read, Adult Protective Services. Mr. Bennett, she asked. Yes. We've received a report. Concerns about your ability to manage your affairs. Her tone was flat, practiced. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly who had called. Max barked, low and steady, tail stiff. I kept a hand on his collar. I manage my own, I said. May I come in? She asked. The room smelled of bleach and old carpet. She glanced at the papers spread on the bed. Are you keeping track of your medications? Finances? I held up the folder. Every receipt, every bill, all mine. She flipped through a page, eyes widening at the Chase stamp, the Walgreens slips, the hospital EOBS. She scribbled a note. We'll follow up, but... She hesitated, then lowered her voice. Honestly, sir, this doesn't look like neglect. It looks like someone wants you declared incompetent. I nodded. My kids. Her eyes softened. Then keep those documents safe. A PS closes cases without cause, but reports can be damaging in court. When she left, the silence in the room was louder than any argument. That night, my phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Dad, you don't need to make this harder. Just sign. Otherwise, we'll let the state decide. I stared at the words until the screen went dark. The next day at the mailbox, I found a letter addressed to me. Already opened. Golden Oaks pamphlet slipped inside, written across the top in Brooke's hand, room reserved, Thursday 2:30 p.m. Max whined, pawing at the paper. I tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. They weren't just pushing anymore. They were trying to break me. But I'd learned something the APS worker hadn't written down. Reports can vanish, but documents endure. I pulled the folder close, felt its weight. The pressure was real, but so was the proof. And if they wanted war, I was ready to let them start it. The morning felt wrong from the start. The motel hallway hummed with the ice machine, but when I reached my door, the knob was warm. Someone had been inside. I rushed in. Max barked, pacing tight circles. The folder was still on the table, but the top flap gaped open. One paper was gone, the chase freeze order. My chest clenched. Without that proof, they could argue I'd never acted at all. I tore through the room. Bed, nightstand, trash bin, nothing. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the folder. Max whined, pawing at the nightstand. Behind it, jammed against the wall, I found the paper crumpled, as if someone had slipped it out, then lost their nerve. I pressed it flat against the table, smoothed the creases. The stamp was still clear. I slid it into a plastic sleeve and swore I wouldn't leave it unguarded again. Later that afternoon, another blow. A letter arrived, forwarded from my house. Envelope neat, county clerk seal on the corner. Inside, a guardianship petition already filled out. My name, their signatures. Date set for next month. It wasn't official yet. No court stamp, no judge's hand. But it was real enough to send a chill through me. I drove to Ramirez's office, Max riding shotgun, folder on my lap. The sun burned hot through the windshield, sweat rolling down my back. "If someone's trying to file already," I said, shoving the petition across her desk. She studied it, jaw tight. "Draft only. They don't have standing without capacity evidence, but they'll try again." She tapped the chase slip now, safe in its sleeve. "This stays with me from now on. If they get desperate, they'll go after documents." "Already did," I muttered. She leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Then double every copy. Bank box, storage, me. Assume they're watching." When I walked back to the car, Max pressed his nose to my hand, warm and steady. For the first time, I thought maybe he understood better than anyone. The world still saw me as deaf, broken, fading. My kids counted on that. But I wasn't fading, not yet. And if they wanted me gone, they'd have to fight the paper trail I built with my own hands. The next days blurred into heat and paper. I made copies of everything. Walgreens receipts, Chase letters, Ramirez's notarized forms, each one sealed in plastic sleeves. One set in the bank box, another in the storage unit, the third in Ramirez's cabinet. But it wasn't enough. I needed something that couldn't vanish in the night. At the county clerk's office, the line stretched past the door. The air smelled of toner and sweat, fluorescent lights buzzing. I clutched my folder, Max waiting outside with a neighbor who offered to hold his leash. When my turn came, I slid the packet under the glass. The clerk scanned it, stamped each page with a heavy clunk. The sound echoed in my chest like a heartbeat. Official now. Not just paper in a motel. As I gathered the stamped copies, I caught two familiar voices behind me, Brooke and Madison. "Judge will have no choice," Brooke said. "Once he's declared incompetent, everything's ours," Madison whispered back. They hadn't seen me, not yet. I tilted my head, right ear turned away, pretending to fumble with the papers. My good ear caught every word. "Golden Oaks, Thursday, 2:30. After that, it's done," Brooke said. My hands tightened on the stamped pages. Proof was one thing, timing was another. That night, Ramirez called. "Court hearing is set for Thursday. Probate Division, Superior Court. They'll push guardianship. We'll counter with your affidavit and evidence. Be ready." My chest tightened, not from the scar, but from the weight of it all. Thursday? The same day they planned my burial in Golden Oaks. Max curled beside me on the bed, head heavy on my arm. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the AC hum, and whispered to him, "They think Thursday is theirs. It's ours, Max, ours." For the first time in months, I felt something close to steady. Not hope, not yet, but ground under my feet. The storm was coming, and I wasn't walking in blind. Thursday morning smelled of rain on asphalt. I stood outside the Superior Court, folder pressed to my chest. Max's leash looped around my hand. The courthouse steps buzzed with people, neighbors, reporters from Channel 7, attorneys clutching briefcases. News vans lined the curb, their satellite dishes pointing skyward. One cameraman adjusted his lens, catching my face. I tilted my head, right ear forward, as if I didn't hear the whispers. "That's him. The old man. His kids are trying to put him away. Bet the judge rules in their favor." Inside, the marble floor echoed with every step. Fluorescent lights washed the hall in pale daylight. Ramirez walked beside me, her heels clicking sharp and steady. "Remember," she said quietly, "let the evidence speak. Don't let them rattle you." At the courtroom door, Ethan waited, suit too crisp, smile too sharp. Brooke beside him, hair perfect, clutching her tote bag like it was evidence of her own. Madison leaned against the wall, phone in hand, pretending not to notice me. "Dad," Ethan said, voice loud enough for the hallway, "this doesn't have to be ugly. Just admit you need help." I tilted my head, as though straining to hear. His smile widened. He thought he had me. But my good ear caught his whisper to Brooke. "Once this is done, the house is ours." Max growled low. Ramirez shot Ethan a look colder than the marble underfoot. "Mister, Bennett is competent," she said flatly. "That's what today will prove." The bailiff called us in. The room smelled of paper and wood polish. Rows of benches filled fast. Neighbors, HOA members, curious strangers. Phones slipped from pockets, recording, ready to catch the fall of an old man. The judge entered. "Guardianship petition, case number 21,458. Parties present?" And Ethan stepped forward. "Yes, Your Honor. We're here to protect our father." His voice dripped with duty. Brooke and Madison nodded solemnly, the perfect chorus. Ramirez touched my sleeve, guiding me to the table. I set the folder down with a heavy thump. Papers inside shifted like a heartbeat. The judge's eyes landed on me. "Mr. Bennett, you understand why you're here today?" I nodded. My throat was dry, but my words came steady. "Yes, Your Honor. To prove I'm still alive." A murmur rippled through the benches. Phones lifted higher. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. The stage was set. The judge adjusted his glasses, eyes sharp above the bench. "Mr. Bennett, counsel, present your case." Ramirez rose smoothly, heels tapping once on the hardwood. "Your Honor, the petition claims my client lacks capacity. We will show evidence to the contrary, starting with a sworn affidavit from his physician, dated and notarized." She handed the document to the clerk. The notary seal caught the light, pressed deep into the paper. Ethan shifted in his chair, forced to look. "That doesn't prove anything. He forgets things all the time." The judge raised a brow. "Mr. Bennett, please state your full name and today's date." I stood, folder in hand, heart pounding. "Harold James Bennett, Thursday, June 17th. A low murmur spread through the benches. Someone whispered, "Sounds clear enough to me." Ramirez nodded. "And for the record, Mr. Bennett has managed his own finances, his own care, since surgery. We have receipts to prove it." Ethan leaned forward, voice rising. "He's confused, Your Honor. He can't even hear half of what's happening right now." I tilted my head, right ear toward him, the old trick. "I hear you, Ethan," I said evenly, every word. Gasps rippled across the room. Cameras clicked. Brooke's smile faltered. The judge tapped his pen. "We'll review additional evidence. But so far, the respondent appears coherent." Madison jumped in. "He's rehearsed, Your Honor. That lawyer is feeding him lines." Ramirez didn't flinch. She slid another paper across. "Then, let's test something unrehearsed. Here are his signed and dated receipts from Walgreens, Chase Bank, and his hospital, each transaction recent, each in his name only." The clerk passed them to the judge. He flipped through slowly. "Your father paid for his own prescriptions, his own bills," the judge said, eyes narrowing at Ethan. "That's not the profile of incompetence." Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked at Brooke, then back at me. "Those could be forged." I raised the folder, its flap heavy with pages. "Then let's see how many times I've forged my own life." Phones lifted higher. The buzz of whispers swelled, neighbors shifting in their seats. The first blow had landed, and Ethan had swung too fast, trying to deny it. The courtroom had its own weather, a dry chill from the vents, the smell of floor polish and paper, the creak of benches whenever someone shifted. I could feel the eyes on the back of my neck, the glow of phones being raised, the soft murmur that said people had already picked a side. Ramirez stood, a calm center in the buzz. "Your Honor," she said, "we'd like to call our first witness for this phase. Ms. Patel, branch manager at Chase Bank." Pacific Avenue. A woman in a navy suit stepped forward, right hand up, sworn in, then seated. Her voice was steady, professional. "Miss Patel," Ramirez began, "do you recognize the name Harold James Bennett?" "Yes," she said. "Mr. Bennett is a client at our branch. I've reviewed his account activity at counsel's request. And what did you observe on the dates circled in Exhibit B?" She glanced down. "2 attempted links to an external account through online banking, both unsuccessful. The attempts were flagged because the device ID didn't match Mr. Bennett's login history. Ramirez nodded. Do you have the device ID? Yes. She read off the alphanumeric string like a license plate. It matches a device that's been used at our branch before, on a separate application naming Ethan Bennett as a co-applicant. A ripple of sound moved through the benches like wind through dry grass. I felt my pulse in my fingertips. Ethan shifted, clearing his throat. That's not proof, he said quickly, leaning forward. Lots of phones have similar IDs. The judge looked over his glasses. Mr. Bennett, you'll have a chance to respond. Ramirez kept going. Miss Patel, did Mr. Bennett himself come into the branch regarding those attempts? Yes. He requested an immediate freeze. We processed it while he was present. I personally stamped the confirmation. Her eyes tracked to the stamped page in front of the judge. That stamp is ours. I remembered the cool of the counter under my palms, the way the rubber stamp had thumped like a heart. I remembered how hard I had to swallow to keep my voice even when I said, freeze the account. Ramirez's pen tapped once. In your professional opinion, does this activity suggest, Mr. Bennett is incapable of managing his finances? No, Ms. Patel said. He knew what he wanted, articulated it clearly, and followed through. The freeze was appropriate given the access attempts. Ethan laughed too loudly. She's mistaken. He barely knows how to use a phone. He thinks the microwave is a computer. There was more laughter from the back. Not friendly, not for him. The judge rapped his gavel once. Let's keep this orderly. I kept my head tilted, right ear forward, the old habit, and caught Brooks' whisper to Madison under the bench noise. This is nothing. It doesn't prove he pays anything. Wait for the pharmacy. Ramirez heard it too, or she didn't need to. She was already there. Your Honor, we also call Miss Alvarez, pharmacy supervisor at Walgreens Pacific Avenue. A woman with tired eyes and a bright scarf took the stand. The scent of alcohol swabs and toner seemed to follow her. Or maybe it was memory from those aisles under buzzing lights. Alvarez, Ramirez said. Does your system log who picks up prescriptions? Yes, she said. A name at pickup, a timestamp, and a signature on the pad. On the date listed in Exhibit C, who picked up Mr. Bennett's medication? She checked the printout. It lists authorized family. The name signed reads B. Bennett. The timestamp is 2:11 p.m. Brooke sat straighter, lips pressed thin. Madison's nails clicked against her phone case. Ramirez didn't look at them. Did you verify ID? Faye, for blood pressure meds, ID is not always required if a family member is authorized. We go by the profile note and signature. Does your system indicate who authorized the family member? Yes. Miss Alvarez glanced down. The note was added from a phone number on file, not the patient's. It was later removed. Removed by whom? She looked uneasy. By someone at our counter after Mr. Bennett came in to complain the next day. I handled that personally. I saw the clerk's face in my memory, the way she'd said caregiver like a gentle slap, the way the words poor guy slid off someone else's tongue in line. And did Mr. Bennett pay for his medications? Yes, she said quickly, by card on file. Charges processed through the bank ending in 1423. Same account as his other pharmacy purchases. Ramirez turned to the judge. Those are Mr. Bennett's funds. Ethan spread his hands as if explaining to a child. He forgets to go sometimes. We help. That's normal. We're not stealing. Mr. Bennett, the judge said, you'll get your turn. I swallowed, my mouth dry. Your Honor? He nodded. May I say one thing to Miss Alvarez? The judge considered the room, the phones, the faces, and then nodded. Briefly, I looked at the woman on the stand. When I came back the next day, the clerk told me to talk to my caregiver. She held my gaze, professional face slipping just an inch. I'm sorry, she said. We get suggestions in cases like this. It wasn't fair. My throat tightened. I'm not asking for fair, just accurate. There was a hush then, real, heavy. I heard the HVAC kick on, the faint clatter of a file cart out in the hall, Max's tail thumping once against my shoe where he laid under our table, quiet as a prayer. Ramirez slid another page across the table to me, a photocopy. Mr. Bennett opened his children's first accounts at Chase 19 years ago, she said to the judge, without looking away from Ethan. He signed the deposit forms. He explained compounding interest to them in that branch. He is not financially incompetent, And he didn't become so when they decided they were impatient. I was back there in a breath, Linda's hand warm on my elbow as we waited at the bank counter, Madison's hair in a crooked ponytail, Ethan's chipped tooth flashing when he grinned at the free lollipops. I heard myself saying, "Save 10 now, it becomes 20. Heard Linda humming in line. Heard the way both of them said, "Okay, Dad," as if they'd keep the promise forever. Memory can be cruel when it arrives dressed as kindness. Ethan shook his head, jaw tight. "He's playing the crowd." Brooke couldn't stop herself. "He's not safe alone." He forgets the stove. He feeds the dog twice. He got lost at the HOA meeting. 2 board members in the back exchanged a look. One of them raised a hand. The judge sighed, then nodded. Briefly, the man stood. He didn't get lost. He was asked to sit in the back because we didn't have enough chairs. The second spoke up too. And his gate code? It was removed before the vote. We didn't authorize that. Phones went higher. Whispering grew teeth. The judge rapped the gavel again. "Order!" Ramirez's pen tapped twice. "Your Honor, we also submit Mr. Bennett's affidavit from his cardiologist and audiologist, cognitively intact, partial hearing loss in the right ear, capable of self-determination, advised to avoid undue stress." She paused, let the last phrase hang. Avoid undue stress. The words felt like a joke in this room and an indictment at the same time. "Anything further on this line?" the judge asked. Ramirez was ready. "Yes. One more detail in the bank logs. The external access attempts were made within 10 minutes of calendar entries created for Golden Oaks. Those entries were shared to Mr. Bennett's phone without his consent. We have the metadata." Ethan's chair scraped. "That's ridiculous." "None of that. Sit down," the judge said, and something in his voice cut the air cleanly. I felt a heat I hadn't let myself feel in months. Not anger alone, but something older, steadier, the sense that my life might still belong to me when the day ended. Ethan leaned toward Brooke, whispering fast. I tilted my head and caught fragments. "When he signs, list immediately. Realtor. Offer already lined up. Don't panic." Madison tried to light her face with concern. "Your Honor, my father acted erratically after his surgery. He wandered. He forgot meds. We intervened out of love." I turned to her, the head tilt again, ritual and defense. "When I forgot Madison," I said softly, "was it before or after I paid for your last car insurance premium?" She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Brooke shot her a warning look. Ethan's hand tightened into a fist on his knee. The judge tapped his pen. "All right. We've heard sufficient on the financial and medical competence for now. Counsel, do you have additional evidence?" "Yes," Ramirez said. She didn't look at me, but I felt the shift, the way a house feels a storm roll in. "But we'll reserve it for the next sequence." The judge nodded. "We'll take a brief recess." "Be back in 15. He stood. The bailiff called the room. The benches erupted into a low thunder of voices. The scrape of shoes, the metallic click of the door handles as people surged toward the hall. I stayed seated. Max lifted his head, pressed it against my calf. I smoothed the flap of the folder, feeling the ridge of the zipper bag where the recorder waited. The red light had blinked the night I'd tilted my head and listened to my children make plans over microwave dinners and lemon polish. Not out of malice alone, out of a kind of convenience that eats people alive. "Hey," someone said softly. A neighbor, the Johnsons. He kept his voice low, eyes flicking to the cameras near the door. We didn't know. About the pharmacy, about the gate." I nodded without looking up. "Knowing isn't the same as helping." He swallowed. "We'll be there if you need us." Maybe, maybe not. The hall hummed beyond the door. I stared at the grain of the wood on the table, at the notches that other lives had left there. The vents blew cool air across my hands. The room smelled like polish and old paper, like courthouse and rain-soaked coats and nerves. Outside, I could hear Channel 7's reporter practicing a tagline, elder exploitation or family intervention. A San Joaquin father fights to keep his life his own. The words were tidy even. The story was not. Ramirez returned with 2 styrofoam cups of water. She set one in front of me, within reach. "You did well," she said. "I barely said anything," I answered. "That's what well looks like today." Her gaze flicked to the folder. "Next, we open the audio, we do it clean." She lowered her voice until only I could hear it. "One wave at a time. I took the water. It tasted like nothing. It tasted like calm. Outside, the bailiff's voice called us back. People filed in with their faces lifted, hungry for the next thing. The second wave had hit. It didn't knock them down, not yet, but it moved the water. You can feel when a current shifts. You can feel when a room goes from watching a quiet man fail to watching a quiet man stand. I stood. Max rose with me, and we turned to face the door. The bailiff's voice cut through the chatter. All rise. The judge returned, robes swaying, expression harder now, as if the recess had given weight to what he'd heard. The benches creaked, people shuffling back into place, the air heavy with anticipation. "Counsel," the judge said, "you may proceed with your next piece of evidence." Ramirez rose, calm but sharp, her legal pad balanced in one hand. "Your Honor, the financial and medical records establish capacity. Now we present evidence of coercion." She opened the folder, drew out a small digital recorder sealed in an evidence bag. The red light blinked faintly, as if it remembered the night. Mr. Bennett has lived under the impression that his hearing loss made him vulnerable. In reality, it allowed him to collect unguarded statements from the petitioners. She handed the device to the clerk. The judge frowned. "Is this authenticated?" "Yes, time-stamped. Chain of custody with my office." The clerk pressed play. Ethan's voice filled the courtroom, tinny but clear. "Once he signs, we list the house immediately. Realtors ready." The benches shifted, gasps muffled, phones tilted higher. Brooks' voice followed, unmistakable. "He's too stubborn. If he stalls, we'll push guardianship. Judge will believe us. He doesn't even hear half of what we say." I watched the faces in the benches. HOO neighbors leaning forward, the Johnsons clutching each other's hands, the reporter's pen scribbling faster. "Out of context," Brooks snapped, cheeks flushed. "We were stressed, The judge rapped his gavel. "Quiet!" Ramirez gestured to the clerk. "Continue." Now Madison's whisper, cold and small. Golden Oaks said Thursday 2:30. If he doesn't sign, we can push the guardianship process. The silence afterward was brutal. Even Max lifted his head from under the table, ears pricked at the echo of voices that had once been family. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Bennett, do you recognize these voices?" I nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. My children, planning my burial while I was sitting at the table." Ethan slammed a hand on the desk. "That's manipulation. He's been recording us without permission. He's paranoid." "Paranoia," Ramirez said smoothly, "doesn't produce corroborated timestamps, doesn't match phone metadata, and doesn't align with signed Golden Oaks paperwork we've also obtained." She slid another set of pages across. Each form predated the supposed conversation with Mr. Bennett. They never intended to involve him. The judge flipped through the copies, eyes narrowing. The scrape of paper on wood sounded louder than anything else in the room. "Petitioners," he said slowly, "do you dispute that these forms bear your signatures?" Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. His throat bobbed. "We were just planning ahead. That's not illegal." Ramirez's gaze stayed steady. "Planning ahead is not illegal. But coercion, forgery, and misrepresentation in pursuit of control over an elder's estate most certainly are." Whispers turned into low thunder from the benches. Someone muttered, "Disgusting!" Another, louder, "Stealing from your own father." I tilted my head, my right ear toward Ethan. "You said I didn't hear half of what you said," I told him softly, but the room carried my voice. Turns out, I heard the half that mattered. The judge banged the gavel again, order barely holding. Brooks' mask cracked. "We did it for his safety." He forgets. He feeds the dog twice. And yet, he kept every receipt, every bill, every record more carefully than you kept your lies. Ramirez shot back. The judge's gaze swept across the petitioners. "We will hear final evidence before ruling, but I will say this. The credibility of this petition has been severely undermined." Ethan's face flushed red. His hand gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles whitened. Madison's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the wood, screen lighting up with a text preview. "Realtor. Ready for papers today." The clerk picked it up, passed it silently to the judge. The gavel came down again, sharp as a crack of thunder. "Proceed with the last evidence." I sat back, folder heavy in my lap, Max leaning into my leg. I felt the shift. Not victory, not yet, but the current dragging hard against them. They were slipping. And the third wave had only just hit. The judge's gavel echoed once, steady as a heartbeat. The benches quieted, phones hovered high, their red dots glowing like watchful eyes. The whole county, it seemed, had crammed itself into this room. Ramirez stood, calm, unshaken. Your Honor, the last evidence is straightforward. We've shown Mr. Bennett's capacity. We've shown financial records, medical affidavits, and testimony from neutral parties. Now, we'll show intent. She lifted a single sheet of paper. The courtroom leaned in. This is a reservation confirmation from Golden Oaks Assisted Living. It lists a room number, a date, today, Thursday at 2:30 p.m., and in the margin, handwritten. Once he signs, lists the house immediately. The handwriting has been identified by staff as belonging to Brooke Bennett. A murmur swept the benches. Brooke's face went pale. "That's a lie," she cried. "They forged it." The Golden Oaks coordinator, sitting 2 rows back, stood. "It's hers," she said firmly. "She gave it to me herself. I told her we couldn't hold a room without the patient's consent. She said, 'Don't worry, he won't resist much longer.'" The benches erupted. Gasps, mutters, even laughter from the back row. The judge hammered the gavel. "Order!" Ethan's composure cracked. "We were protecting him!" His voice rose shrill. "He's weak. He's confused. He wouldn't even have survived the hospital bills without us." I stood. The folder was in my hands, heavy as stone. "Without you?" My voice was quiet, but it cut the air. "I paid every cent, alone. These papers..." I raised the manila folder, edges frayed from weeks of clutching it. "These are the proof of my life. Not your plans, not your sticky notes. My life." The judge nodded to Ramirez. "Do you have anything further?" She tapped her pen once. "No more evidence. The story tells itself now." The judge looked at Ethan, at Brooke, at Madison. "Do you deny signing these forms, making these plans, while your father was alive and capable?" Silence. Brooke's eyes darted to Ethan. Madison's lip trembled. Ethan's jaw clenched. He muttered, "We just wanted the house." The words hung heavy, ugly, final. Reporters scribbled furiously. One neighbor covered her mouth with her hand. Another shook his head in disgust. The judge's voice was steel. "The petition for guardianship is denied. This court refers the matter to the county's Financial Crimes Unit for review of attempted fraud and coercion. Effective immediately, no member of the petitioning party may act on Mr. Bennett's behalf in any capacity." The gavel struck once, twice. The storm had broken. Phones flashed. The Channel 7 reporter whispered into her mic. In a stunning turn, the court sided with the father, exposing his children's attempt to take his home and assets. More tonight at 6. Ethan slumped into his chair, face drained. Brooke covered hers with shaking hands. Madison's phone buzzed on the table with a realtor's text. "Ready to list when you are." The judge had already seen it. I pressed the folder flat on the table, smoothed the wrinkled flap. Max nosed it, tail thumping once against the floor. I looked at my children one last time, not with rage, with truth. "You buried me with papers," I said softly, every word carrying in the silent room. "Today, those papers buried you." The benches erupted again, not with pity, but with the sound of witnesses who had seen justice arrive. I closed the folder, slid it into my bag, and walked out with Max at my side. The courthouse steps felt different on the way out. The morning rain had dried, leaving the pavement warm under the California sun. Reporters swarmed near the curb, microphones pointed, flashes strobing. "Mr. Bennett, how does it feel to win? Sir, what will happen to your children now? Do you think elder fraud is a bigger problem in this county?" I kept my head down, folder pressed to my chest, Max pulling gently on the leash. Ramirez raised a hand, blocking the crowd. "No comments today," she said firmly, but the whispers around us were louder than the microphones. "Good for him. Can you believe your own kids would try that?" Guess he showed them. The Johnsons, my old neighbors, caught my eye at the edge of the crowd. For the first time in months, they didn't look away. Mr. Johnson lifted a hand in a quiet wave. His wife's lips moved. "I'm sorry." I nodded. No words needed. News vans idled by the curb, Channel 7 already filming a live shot. The reporter's voice carried in the background. In a case that sheds light on elder exploitation, the court ruled in favor of Harold Bennett, rejecting his children's petition and referring the matter for possible criminal investigation. Criminal investigation. The words buzzed in my ears like a second verdict. Back at the motel, the room looked smaller, emptier. The bleach smell no longer stung, just clung. I set the folder on the table, Max curling at my feet. For the first time, I didn't open it. The papers had already spoken. The phone buzzed. A voicemail from Ethan. His voice cracked, desperate. "Dad, please!" "Don't let them press charges. We were stupid, okay? We were scared. Don't ruin us." Another from Brooke, tearful. "I didn't mean it to go this far. I just wanted to feel safe. Please answer me." And Madison, the coldest. "You embarrassed us. You'll regret this when you're alone." I deleted them all, one by one. The silence after the last click was heavier, but cleaner. I sat on the edge of the bed, sweater of Linda's folded in my lap. I whispered, "I did it, Lynn. I kept the house. I kept me." Max's head pressed against my knee, steady as ever. For the first time in a long while, I slept without the folder under my pillow. A week later, I walked back through my own front door. The lemon polish smell had faded. Dust lay on the frames, the air heavy with quiet. The house wasn't staged for someone else anymore. It was mine again. I moved slowly, hand on the wall, tracing grooves I'd painted with Linda years ago. The living room looked bare without her flowers, but the light through the blinds still striped the floor the same way it always had. Max padded behind me, nails clicking on the wood. He sniffed every corner as if to confirm it was safe. I set the folder, the same manila file that had followed me through courtrooms and motels, onto the kitchen table. Its corners were bent, papers wrinkled, but the weight that had once felt like a curse now felt like armor I no longer needed to carry. One by one, I slid the receipts, statements, and affidavits into a new fireproof box. I kept one page out, a Walgreens slip, my name printed clearly. I pinned it to the fridge with Linda's old magnet, proof that I was here, that I paid my way, that I wasn't erased. The rest of the folder I closed for good. The snap of the flap echoed in the quiet house. Neighbors stopped avoiding me. Mrs. Johnson knocked one evening with a plate of cookies. "You showed a lot of strength," she said softly. For the first time, she didn't look at me with pity. The kids didn't come around. Maybe they never would. But I realized something. Family is a two-way street, and when they block your lane and try to run you off, you're allowed to drive your own way and take what's yours. I sat at the kitchen table with Max at my feet, tea steaming in my hands. The house creaked in the California night, familiar and steady. And before I closed the chapter completely, I thought about everyone watching my story now. If you've come this far, don't just leave it here. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if it was your family trying to bury you with papers? I'll read your names, your cities, and I'll know I wasn't alone in this fight. I looked once more at Linda's magnet on the fridge, the Walgreens slip beneath it, proof of life, proof of dignity.